Welcome to Dragonfly Within, a space for creativity, reflection, and becoming. Here we explore art, life, and the quiet moments in between. There's no need to have it all figured out. Just bring your curiosity and meet yourself where you are. Hello and good day. Today's episode, we will explore the making of art for how it feels rather than for how it looks, and how that shift changes our relationship with creativity. Creating for the feeling and not the finish. What if the feeling mattered more than the finished piece? This question gently challenges one of the strongest messages we absorbed about creativity. That the value of what we make lives in the outcome. The final painting, the completed project, the polished result that can be shared, judged, and displayed. But many of us didn't begin creating because we wanted a finished project. We began because of how it felt. The feeling of moving color across a page. The quiet focus that settles in when our hands are busy. The sense of being absorbed, present, and connected to something beyond words. And somewhere along the way, that feeling often gets overshadowed by expectations. We start asking whether what we're making is good enough, finished enough, meaningful enough. When the focus shifts too heavily towards the finish, creativity can start to feel tense. Oh yes, I remember a time when I was working on an Afghan, and I was coming close to the end, and I always judge the size, like, does it cover my toes yet when I'm sitting in my chair? And because I like my Afghans to be large, so I'm counting down. I'm like, okay, I need 4 more rows to go. And I noticed I was starting to get a little more tense and rushing and anxious, and I wanted it done. And then I was like, whoa, slow down, relax, slow it down, enjoy the process. So that's just a little thing about when your focus shifts too heavily towards the finish, we tend to rush the process. Sometimes we second guess ourselves. And then we compare. And slowly, the very thing that once brought us ease begins to feel heavy. Creating for the feeling invites us back into a different relationship of art. It asks us to pay attention, not to how the work looks, but how it feels in the body, in the breath, in the nervous system. It asks us to notice what changes inside us while we create. How does your body respond when you pick up a brush, a pen, maybe a piece of fabric? Does your breath soften? Do your shoulders drop? Do you feel more grounded, more awake, more at home in yourself? These responses matter. They are not just side effects of creativity. They are part of its purpose. When we allowed feeling to lead, the work often becomes more honest, less performative. We stop trying to make something impressive and instead of making something true. And sometimes that truth doesn't look polished. Sometimes it looks messy, very, very messy, layered, unfinished. And sometimes it never becomes something we show anyone. And that's enough. There is freedom in creating without needing your work to justify itself. Freedom in letting a piece exist simply because it supported you in that moment. Because it helped you move through a feeling or rest inside one. Because it allowed you to express something that didn't need words. This shift changes how we show up. We become more willing to begin because the stakes are lower. We're no longer asking every piece to prove our worth or define our identity. We're allowing creativity to be a companion instead of a performance. It also changes how we relate to unfinished work. When feeling is the measure, unfinished doesn't mean failed. It means the process did what it needed to do. The work served its purpose, even if it never reached a final form. Creating for feeling helps us listen inward. It teaches us to notice when something feels forced and when something feels alive. It builds trust, not in outcomes, but in ourselves. Trust that we can sense when to continue and when to stop. Trust that our inner experience is worth honoring. This way of creating is especially gentle during seasons of uncertainty or fatigue. When energy is low, focusing on the finish can feel overwhelming. But focus on a feeling, on comfort, expression, or quiet regulation makes creativity accessible again. It meets us where we are. The finished piece may still come, and often it does, but it arrives as a byproduct, not a demand. And when it does, it carries something deeper than polish. It carries presence. So the next time you sit down to create, you might want to ask yourself a few different questions. You don't want to ask, what am I trying to make? Instead say, what do I need to feel right now? Not Is this good? Try, is this honest? Not should I finish this, but is this serving me? When you create for the feeling, you give yourself permission to slow down, to stay curious, to let the process lead. You allow creativity to be restorative rather than draining, supportive rather than demanding. The beauty of this approach is that it reconnects us to why we create in the first place. Not to produce, but to be present. Not to arrive somewhere, but to experience something. Not to be perfect, but to feel. And when feeling becomes the guide, creativity becomes about less of what we make and more about who we are becoming along the way. Thank you for spending this time with me in Dragonfly Within. If something here stayed with you, let it land gently. There's no rush. Growth happens in its own time. Until next time, keep listening inward and trust what's unfolding within you.